Happy holidays, everyone. This video tutorial is going to cover what child is this, and using the technique of quartal voicings, or voicing stacked in fourths, fourth intervals, to support the melody, to give it a little bit more modern sound. And this is actually a great tune to start learning about quartal harmony, and because the melody, building these fourth intervals underneath the melody is ideal. It's perfect in this tune, as you'll see. And the only time we won't be using quartal harmony will be on some of the dominant chords, but for the most part, almost every minor and major chord will be able to use that. So let's start with a little bit of theory. We're going to jump in to learning the quartal chords in the key of E minor, and we're going to base our quartal harmony off of the Dorian mode. And then we're going to actually build these voicings on the E minor pentatonic scale. 1, 3, 4, 5, 7, 1. I will demonstrate. So E is on top, and we're going to build fourth intervals underneath. And then G, build fourth intervals underneath. A, fourth underneath. So you want to lock these down first. Okay. And then we're going to walk back down. So that would be your first step, is to really key in on these voicings in the Dorian mode and understand that you're building this off of the pentatonic scale being the top note. And if you can really hit on those points and lock into that, then what you can do as an exercise is just pedal or ride the E in the left hand. It's a nice, fun little exercise, and actually that'll be something that you do just in your comping and ad-libbing, improvising over a tune in general. If you're just grooving over that one chord, and that's very common for modal styles. Okay, so let's actually get into the tune and kind of figure out what's happening here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build the same quartal harmony underneath these main melody notes. So under this G, I'm going to build the fourth interval underneath it. And then under the B, so we're on beat 1. And then next measure, beat 1. Build your quartal harmony underneath, and then beat 1. And that would be your main focus initially, is to build those voicings. Don't even worry about the melody. Yes, learn the melody, of course, but focus on stacking those fourth intervals underneath the downbeat or whenever the chord changes. Okay? So then it looks like this. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then we will continue that. Let's go to the next part of the phrase. So G, build underneath it, stacked fourths. E, build underneath it, stacked fourths. And so then what I have here is actually a resolve to an F sharp 7. I just like how that sounds better. So take the 4, resolve it to the 3. All right, and now we have a B7 sus4 flat 9. So we can't really build a fourth interval off of this and really get a good sound. So we're doing a little bit of modification here. And And I really like this chord. Think of it as an A minor with the F sharp on top. And this is a B7 sus flat 9. So it still has that sus harmony. Okay? And then we're going to resolve that to a B7 sus 4 with the B on top. So remember, we're always looking at the top note of the melody we're constructing underneath. And so we can have this little cluster, or you can even take out the F sharp if you want to give you just a true, like the 3 notes of from the quarter voicing. So it's the same 3 notes, but we're having to rearrange it. And but I think adding the F sharp, I like that better. All right, so what do we do with our left hand? With our left hand, we're going to use Shell Voicings. That is probably the best way to put this all together and have the notes evenly spread out and not be too thick and too dense. And for the most part, we'll use 7th intervals and maybe change that on a few chords depending on where our hands are on the keyboard. So the E minor 7, we'll use a 7, and then the A13, 7, F sharp, 7, and then when we get to the B, we have a few different choices here. We could do a 3rd interval. Actually sounds just fine. You could do the octave as well, or you could do a 10th, or you could add the 5th interval there. It's just all up to you in terms of how you want it to sound. But I think the safe bet is to do either the 3rd or the octave, and then you can work up from there. On the C6, we're going to do the same thing. Because everything is lower, we can't do these 7th intervals. They're too dense. And the rule of thumb is E flat is about as low as you want to play a 7th. So on the C, we're going to do the same thing. Either octave or a 3rd or a 10th if you can reach it, or roll into it. And on the B, we don't want to do a 7th interval here because, you know, we're down in this area. We don't want to do a 3rd because that's going to disrupt our sus voicing in this case. You can hear it. It changes our chord. Does not sound good. So what you could do here is you could do the octave. I really like that. You could play the 4th interval on the left hand. Okay? And then when you resolve this, you can just keep the left hand in the same place. Okay, let me go through that section. I'm going to block it, and then I'm going to play through it with a little bit of accompaniment. And now it's all starting to come together, right? Okay, so we're just going to take those same concepts, same left-hand shells, and now I'm going to apply it to the A1 section. So when I got the B7 sharp 5, actually you do have other options. You could do the 3rd, okay, or you can do an octave. You don't want to do a 7th, or you can roll into the 10th there. Okay, because the melody is here and you're building underneath the melody, you want to leave your left hand a little bit more open, less dense the lower that you go. All right, so then we're just going to take the same concepts and apply it to the rest of the tune. So now I'm just going to quickly go through this, going through the right hand shapes, shells, and then putting it together. So on the G major 13, on the D, stacked fourths, right? Now, if you really want to if we add the B in, that gives us our 3 of our chord. So it sounds a little bit better. So you can either do 1, 3, 7, or you can roll into it. Okay? Okay, so now we're on the F sharp minor 7. A is our top note, built underneath. Okay, and now we have D as our top note. Build your fourth voicing. In the left hand, you can do this third, or you can do the octave, or you can do your 10th. Okay, or you can do a 1, 5, 10. The C6, 9. Build your fourth voicing underneath. You can do a 10th. You don't want to do a 7th. You can do a 3rd. Okay. And then next measure, F sharp 7, so that's 4. Same as before. 7th interval. And notice the right and the left hand are doing the same thing here. And we're moving that B to an A sharp, just like before. And then this is the same as before as well. The B7 sus4 flat 9, think of it as an A minor, F sharp on top over the B. The B octave is probably your better choice there, or the 4th interval in your left hand voicing. Alright, so now we're to our B1 section, which is like a combination of the B and the A section, or actually the B and the A1 section. So the first 4 measures are like the previous B section we played. The last 4 measures have the same cadence, same ending progression as the A1 section. Okay? So G major 13, just like before, a D melody note, stacked fourths underneath. Shell voicing, add the B in there for a little bit thicker voicing. And then we have the A melody note, stacked fourths underneath. F sharp minor 7. And then we have our D melody note, stacked fourth underneath. And on the left hand, either the 3rd interval, or you can do an octave, or you can do a 10th, or you can do 1, 5, 10. All right, so now we get to the last 4 measures here. We have our G, stacked 4th intervals underneath. You can do 3rd interval in the left hand, 10th, roll it, right? And then we have our B7 sharp 5, D sharp, and we're playing a tritone, the 3 and the 7 and the sharp 5. Okay, just a simple variation of this chord, just the main components that you need. So in the left hand, you can do your 3rd interval, or you can do a 10th interval, or roll it in, and then we'll resolve that. And then our last chord, E sus2. And you definitely want to do an octave here, or you could make this an E minor add 2 just by adding the G in there. But the whole idea is to keep these quartal voicings as the primary focus here, to really dig into those. So now you should have a pretty good idea of kind of what I'm doing with this. We're using quartal voicings as our primary concept. We're building underneath the melody when the chord change occurs. Then we're using some kind of shell voicing in the left hand, and we're modifying that as needed to give us space in the bass area. And then on a few chords, we're not going to be able to do quartal voicing, so we're using chord voicings that have nice voice leading. Okay, one or two of the notes in the chord are moving very smoothly, either by half step or a whole step. And then the next step for this is going beyond this, is adding accompaniment styles, rhythm, ad-libbing, improvising, all of that good stuff. All right, so I hope that gives you a great insight into how to start using quartal voicings. And we didn't go deeply into the theory and analyzing what the tones were based off the chord, and that's something you need to do as well. Make sure you know when you play this voicing, you know which note it is based off the chord, so you're also seeing how that connects together in terms of structure. But in general, just being able to go through this tune, learning quartal voicings in the key of E minor. Remember, it's based off of Dorian. And then when you practice your quartal voicings, practice them based off the pentatonic scale, right? The top note. Start with that first. Get those voicings locked in, because those are all the voicings you're going to need to build underneath the key melody notes. And then just learn a few of the other chord voicings that I talked about, where you can't use quartal voicings. Add the shells, add whatever shell feels best for you, either the 7th or the 3rd. Most of the time the 7ths are the best option. It opens up the sound. And then the next thing is adding accompaniment and improvising. So I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment or send me a message.